This is the Louie Tee Network.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie Tee? Welcome to lockdown coverage, week number 16 in the National Football League. Go, Pack, go! Go, Pack, go! The Green Bay Packers going for their fifth win in a row, taking on the Minnesota Vikings, NFC North family business. If these two teams said they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's family business. And Packers looking for a little bit of revenge. Remember, revenge is a dish best served cold. And on this day, Aaron Rodgers was cold-blooded. Remember, these Vikings beat the Packers in week 2 in the first ever home game for the Vikings in their new stadium. So Packers looking for a little bit of revenge. And remember, in this very game last year, week 17 in Lambeau, Vikings took the division from the Green Bay Packers. So again, Vikings looking for revenge, trying to snap a 2-game losing streak to these Minnesota Vikings. So this was a big one. And so Packers trying to find a way to win this division. They were once 4-6, left for dead in this season. Mike McCarthy, job on the line, doesn't get along with Aaron Rodgers all that well. Is he going to remain Packers head coach? There was a lot of nonsense going on just 2 months ago. Packers have turned it around, winners of 4 straight going into this game, and they're going in the opposite direction of the Minnesota Vikings, who had their ugliest home defeat of the season last week to the Indianapolis Colts. They just seem to be on a different page from the coaching staff. You hear reports after this game of the defensive backs not honoring their head coach's request to double team Jordy Nelson, and you saw what the outcome of that was. How does that even get out to the press? How does that even happen? Mike Zimmer, a guy that you think has a pulse and a control of his team, seems to be a little bit out of sorts. Don't know what's going on in Minnesota right now, and frankly, it does not matter, as his Vikings team will not be playing bonus football this season. After the 5-0 start since the bye week, they've struggled mightily, have the Minnesota Vikings. They've went 2-8 since the bye week, and that's been their downfall this season. We'll talk about this game extensively here in a second, but first, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Louie Tee Network for more great content in 2016 and beyond. We're changing the game over here. Want you to help us do that by simply hitting that red subscribe button on YouTube to become a member of the Louie Tee Network. Also, I am on Twitter. @InTheLabRoom is the Twitter handle. Follow me on Twitter. Also, I'm on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. All of my social media platforms right there above in the center console, scrolling across so you can't miss them. Make sure you take care of business, like the Facebook page, follow me on Twitter, and most importantly, subscribe to the Louie Tee Network on YouTube. That being said, let's jump into this breakdown and talk Packers, Vikings. We start with the victors. To the victors go the spoils as usual on this program. We start with the Green Bay Packers, winners of now 5 straight, 9-6 on the season, with the division in their set and view. They have one more game in front of them, and it's going to be for the division crown come week 17. It's been flexed to Sunday Night Football, so that should be a dandy. The second consecutive year the Packers will play in the final game of Sunday Night Football, week 17, for the division, having it be on the line. So that should be fascinating football. But in this particular game, the story of the game was the offense, and more importantly and more particularly, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron effing Rodgers. And the reason why I get so passionate when I talk about Air Jordy and A-Rod, AR-12, is because of all the questions I had to answer on these two earlier in the season when the Packers were going through a little bit of a struggle. I talked about how Jordy Nelson's going to be just fine. As a matter of fact, when these two teams played the first time and Nelson seemed to be out of sorts. He had come off the week 1 win against Jacksonville, had a passing touchdown in that, a receiving touchdown in that game, but you could tell him and Rodgers weren't on the same page. In that Minnesota game, they weren't on the same page. And early in the season, he was still trying to feel his way back. Wasn't all the way totally back into football shape. Wasn't all the way totally back from the knee surgery. Again, remember, anytime you have surgery, major knee surgery or major surgery on your leg, it's going to take time to get back into the swing of things. And I told everyone, just wait. Jordy will be back. Now he's leading the league in touchdown grabs. He's out there doing the things that he used to do, making big plays. Him and Aaron Rodgers are on the same page. The back shoulder fade is back. If you don't cover Jordy for the entire time and Aaron Rodgers is able to scramble outside the pocket and prolong the play as he does better than anyone in the league, Jordy Nelson is going to uncover, get open, and Rodgers is going to find him in the end zone, as you saw in this football game. Jordy Nelson catching the football, getting yards after the catch like he used to. They're back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Those two are back. They're a lethal combination. You sprinkle in now Devontae Adams, and I told you I thought he was the breakout player for them at the receiver position this season. And now you're getting a new addition, Geronimo Allison, Allison, out of Illinois, undrafted rookie free agent coming in making some plays. So now you get another extra added weapon for a guy that doesn't need any more weapons in Aaron Rodgers, in Geronimo Allison. And so all of a sudden now, Packers starting to hit their stride offensively. Do you know what this game reminded me of? That first half versus Detroit the first time around, and these two teams will meet for the second and final time this season in Detroit in Week 17 on Sunday night. The first time these two met in Lambeau early in the season, Aaron Rodgers had a first half for the ages. I mean, it seemed like he could not miss. They were destroying the Lions in that football game first half. I think they might have put up 28 or 35 in the first half of that game. I mean, it was ridiculous. Rodgers could not miss, and they had themselves a party in the first half of that game. This is what this game reminded me of. Rodgers was so lethal in the first half of this game, and he was hitting everything. And you saw that the calf was healthy because he was moving very well, had the touchdown scramble right before the half. And they had 28 points at the halftime break, and they were doing what they wanted to do offensively. And Rodgers, like I said, whether he was in the pocket shredding them, out of the pocket shredding them, or using his legs to create, whether it be yards on the ground with his legs or just create extra time, buy time, and go off schedule, he was in the zone in this football game. And 4 touchdown tosses for him, 28 of 38, well over 300 yards, a masterful performance. Aaron Rodgers playing at a very high level. You could almost say MVP-esque level. He won't win the award. That will go to someone else. But you look at his numbers, he's definitely deserving of being in that conversation. And what he's done with this Packers team, just think about where they were just a month and a half ago at 4-6, and look at where they are now at 9-6, and still having a shot to win the NFC North. It's just remarkable the turnaround that they've had, and really a lot of that stems from Aaron Rodgers and his play at the quarterback position, gutting it out through some injuries, finding a way to will his team to victories, and getting them in this position where they are right now. Packers are playing outstanding football, and they got it done in this game. Dominated the Vikings, a good defensive team that has struggled over the last 2 weeks. They go out and they really put their foot down on the Minnesota Vikings in this football game and set up a huge showdown in Week 17. Despite whatever the Lions may do on Monday night, whether they win or lose, the division will be on the line come Week 17 as the Green Bay Packers take care of the Minnesota Vikings 38-25. And don't let that final score fool you. This game was not as close as it may appear via the scoreboard. This was 38-13 at one point. Packers were in control of this football game, and they dominated the Minnesota Vikings 6 ways to Sunday. You go to the Vikings side of things in this game, and for the Vikings, probably the most disappointing part of this football game is that you were right there. For all of the good the Green Bay Packers did in this game, all of the effectiveness they had on the offensive side of the football, for as red hot as AR-12 was in this football game, you looked up and you were right there, 21-13, football in hand, on the move, right before the half. And Clay Matthews, who was a man possessed. And oh, by the way, before we move fully on to the Vikings, Clay Matthews is back. Another guy that I want to go ahead and welcome back at this time. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to Clay Matthews. The sack forced fumble was arguably the biggest play of the game because, like I said, the Vikings were going tit for tat with the Packers early in the football game. That sack forced fumble right before the half really did some irreparable damage in this game. The Vikings never recovered from that sack forced fumble recovered by the Packers. They would go on to have a touchdown scored by A-Rod on the ground with his legs. They go up 28-13 at the halftime break. They would not look back. Like I said, the score would end up 38-13 at one point midway through the fourth. So that sack forced fumble to me is what put this game out of reach. And he had a couple of knockaways and deflections at the line of scrimmage. He forced a holding penalty on T.J. Clemmons on a 3rd and 5 that was converted, that pushed it back to 3rd and 15, and the Vikings ultimately had to punt. Clay Matthews was a man possessed. That's what they're going to need moving forward if they're going to try to advance, if they can make it to the playoffs. If they're going to advance in the playoffs, they're going to need Clay Matthews to show up and play the way that he did in this game. But let's go back to the Vikings side of things. That sack by Clay Matthews wrecked everything because you were right there. I thought you had a little something going on the ground with don't tell nobody about the secret weapon known as Jerick McKinnon. Thought he was having a nice game catching it and running it out of the backfield. Sam Bradford was in a little bit of a rhythm, and they could not stop. Hooked on a Thielen. Who could it be now? Couldn't stop Adam Thielen. That man was balling. Oh, man, he was killing them, killing those jive turkeys in the first half. But that sack forced fumble down 21-13 changed the entire landscape of this football game. But nonetheless, Sam Bradford, solid again. The numbers, again, don't tell the story. He was under siege in this game. The offensive line for the Vikings just flat out stinks, especially T.J. Clemmons, which really frustrates me because, again, all the athleticism, length, and everything you need in a really good tackle is there, and he just doesn't have the footwork. And he continues to get beat. And Clay Matthews beat him like he stole something in this game. Bradford was under duress for a lot of the game, getting hit. And they just couldn't get into a rhythm in the second half of this football game. Then you get the snap by the center. He's thinking he's under center, snaps it. As Bradford is in the shotgun, he snaps it like he's under center, so the ball never gets there. It's basically laying on the ground in front of him, doesn't know it, and the Packers rookie defensive tackle Kenny Clark pounces on the football. Just too many mistakes for a Vikings team that was on the road, that already had their fair share of struggles, didn't need to make any mistakes. They did that in this game, and then the defense just simply let them down, whether it was Devontae Adams or Jordy, or it was Geronimo Allison. They were getting abused in that secondary. And again, that begs the question, who decided to make the executive decision to not listen to the head coach or the coaching staff and double Jordy Nelson? Who decided to go rogue and say, all right, we're going to do this instead of that? And it didn't work out in their benefit. And how the hell did that get out to the press? Why do we know that this disagreement between the players and the coaches took place? That shouldn't happen. If you're in a good organization, that kind of stuff stays in-house. But when you're struggling and you start off the season 5-0 and now you're 7-8 and out of playoff contention, these are the types of things that happen, and these are the types of stories that leave the end of your ball games. And so right now, seems like Mike Zimmer needs to get control of his house, get it in order, because right now it seems like the dogs are starting to get off the leash, and he needs to get them under control before they bite someone. In any event, the Vikings had opportunities in this game, and they simply didn't play good enough defense. They had a little stretch, like I said, after the deep ball to Adam Thielen, and they get in the end zone. The defense was rejuvenated. They sack Aaron Rodgers twice in a row. They've got something going. You feel it, and then you get the sack strip forced fumble by Clay Matthews, recovered by the Packers. They move it down the field. Aaron Rodgers is able to scramble in, get in the end zone, and from that point on, the game was never the same. Vikings lose 38-25, and over the last 2 weeks, they've given up 34 I think 34 and 38 respectively. If not 34 last week, 31 for sure. But I believe it was 34-6 last week. In any event, this isn't the Vikings defense that we saw earlier in the season that was dominant and probably the best, if not one of the best defenses in the league. They've fallen on hard times, and they just can't figure out why, and they can't pick up the pieces as they drop another one, this time to the Green Bay Packers, who are red hot right now, 38-25. Take a couple of your comments here before we move on. Egg Rolls the Best says, assuming the Packers make the playoffs, do you think they can beat the Cowboys despite the Packers' defensive issues, especially that shaky secondary? I do. Here's the reason why. They got Aaron Rodgers. And the first time these two teams met, this Packers team was so banged up. They had no identity. Eddie Lacy was on one leg in that Cowboys game, if you remember. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was his final game of the season. They were a different team then. They have an identity now. Then they were trying to figure out if we can still run the football. What are we going to do? Is Jordy Nelson still getting back into the swing of things? Who can we rely on? Who can we trust? There were so many injuries on the defensive side of football. They're starting to get healthy over there now, too. Clay Matthews was all over the place then. The secondary was in shambles. You had a ton of rookies out on the field. There was no Demarius Randall. No one was back there. You were so banged up then. It's a different team, and yes, this secondary still stinks. No doubt about it. We saw Adam Thielen put 12 for 2 and some change on those boys and 2 touches in this game. But I think Aaron Rodgers is in a different headspace. This team collectively in a different headspace. And I think if they go to Big D come playoff time, they could be a team that could be dangerous. And that Cowboys defense, we've been talking about them not being that great. They've played well this season, but they don't want any of Aaron Rodgers. No one wants any of Aaron Rodgers right now. The Packers may be the scariest team in the NFC just because of who's under center right now. They've got it going. Yes, that defense is suspect, but if the Packers can turn it into a shootout, there are not many teams in this league that can survive the bullets and the gun known as Aaron Rodgers. And that's a scary proposition for any team, not just the Cowboys, but the Falcons, the Seahawks, any team in the playoffs right now. They don't want to see the Packers get in. They don't, because Aaron Rodgers is a difference maker. And he can take a team, put them on their back, put them on his back, and take them to the Super Bowl. He's that kind of quarterback. Yes, the Packers have a shot. If they get in, they're going to be a dangerous, dangerous football team that nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to play. RG3 hashtag smoking at 3 hashtag 10 says, do you see the Packers drafting 3 corners? No. They got a lot of young guys that they want to try to develop. Quentin Rollins is on there. They got a young corner, Gunther out of Miami. They got a ton of young guys that they want to develop, and they're fine. They're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. RG3 hashtag smoking at 3 hashtag 1000 says, if I was the Packers, I would try to work on that defense. Definitely, no duh. That's exactly what they're thinking. If we can get our defense in order, we're going to be just fine to make a nice, deep postseason run. And so it's all. I'm gonna leave it in the hands of Dom Capers to keep scheming up ways to get pressure. If they can go back to the way they were earlier in the season when they were stopping and run, one of the best run-stopping teams in the league, and force teams to have to throw it, I think they can be okay. Larry G's the best says Nick Perry was a beast with a broke hand. And he also says the Packers should get press corners. Easier said than done. You know, they don't make good corners and sell them. You know, they don't just sell them out on a street corner where you can just go and snatch one up. And good corners are hard to find. And if there were just good corners out there to be had, everyone would have one. Especially press corners. They're extremely rare in this day and age in the National Football League. So easier said than done. Bottom line is the Packers right now are doing enough on the defensive side of football. And with the way the offense is playing, they're going to be a tough team to stop come January. If they can get there, they got one more game to try to get into the postseason. And if the Lions are game on Monday night and the Lions can get them next week, then the Packers could be on the outside looking in, depending on what happens with other teams around the league, mainly the Washington Redskins. But the bottom line is that this Packers football team is dangerous right now, and it all starts and pretty much ends with Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, the defense isn't great. Yeah, the running game isn't consistent, but Aaron Rodgers under center is a problem that no one wants to have to deal with nor solve And if they can continue to play the way that they've been playing over this 5-game winning streak, no one, and I repeat, no one wants to see the Green Bay Packers. That's going to do it for this breakdown. Packers get the win 38-25, extend the winning streak out to 5 games, and sets up a huge, humongous, gigantic NFC North showdown next Sunday night versus the Detroit Lions. Winner takes all. And it could be, depending on what the Lions do on Monday night tonight, could be win or go home. It could be a winner-take-all proposition where the loser misses out on the postseason. So we're going to see. Lions are going to be able to determine that with their performance tonight versus the Dallas Cowboys. One thing's for sure, Packers have one thing in mind, and that's winning the NFC North division. And one more win and extending this streak out to 6 will achieve that for the Green Bay Packers. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on lockdown coverage. Packers get the win 38-25 Vikings. It's been a tough second half of the season for them as they continue their defensive struggles. They lose this game and drop to 7-8 and out of the playoff race, 38-25. Remember, we're changing the game one live feed at a time. I got one more game to break down. The Who Gives a Damn Bowl, 49ers and Rams coming at you a little bit later on. Have a good one. See you then.